Eddie George has become just the third coach to achieve this feat. We got to talk about what this means historically and what Eddie George is looking to do as we've never seen done before. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, welcome. Thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round, and today we're talking about Ohio State legend Eddie George, who has taken the job at Bowling Green University after putting together a remarkable year at Tennessee State just last year. They go 9-4. They win a share of the Ohio Valley Conference, and they make the FCS playoffs. Remarkable season for him. A man who took that job 1 year after Deion Sanders took the job at Jackson State, and now has joined Deion Sanders, just the third man in history to accomplish this feat. A black coach at an HBCU getting a FBS job has only happened 3 times, right? 1979, we get Willie Jeffries coming from South Carolina State to Wichita State. That's how long ago that was. Wichita State ain't had no football team for a better part of 30 years. Then you get, in 2023, Deion Sanders making it just the second coach, going from Jackson State to Colorado, and now Eddie George, 2025, going from Tennessee State to Bowling Green. I am really enthusiastic about this hire. I think that this is great for Eddie George and his maturation as a head coach. It is a man that did interview for the Chicago Bears head coach job in January, which might have been the first real sign that he had outgrown Tennessee State and he was ready to try to do something new. And when Scott Loeffler decided to leave the Bowling Green job to take the quarterback's coach's position at Philadelphia, you could see how Bowling Green was trying to figure out a way to capitalize on the momentum that the Falcons have had, because while Eddie George has put together a really great resume at Tennessee State, going 24-22 in 4 seasons, and again, that 9-4 record last year, we're talking about a Bowling Green University that has really found its footing in the last 3 years. It's a program that has gone bowling for 3 straight years and produced an All-American at tight end in Harold Fannin, who might be one of the jewels of the 2025 NFL draft class. It's a guy that many people thought should have been crowned the Mackey Award winner, the best tight end in all of football. Now, that ended up going to Tyler Warren at Penn State, but you get it. And then you take a look at what Bowling Green has done. The people that have had that job as head coach and then gone on to greater things starts with, I think, Urban Meyer and it being very close to Ohio. And I was wondering this out loud while there was a little bit of a lull between Tony Alford going to Michigan and Carlos Loughlin coming to Ohio State, whether or not Eddie George would be interested in being the running backs coach at Ohio State. And I don't think his aspirations are to do that. I think his aspirations are not unlike Marcus Freeman's, another great Ohio State player, like Luke Fickell, another great Ohio State player who wanted to be a head coach, run their own programs, and don't really want to work for other people. And I get that. I understand. Deion Sanders has never worked for anybody in college. He has always worked for himself. He's been the head coach, Jackson State, head coach, Colorado, and I'm sure that he is as enthusiastic about Eddie George joining the FBS ranks as anybody else, and it's going to give us a little bit of star power in the MAC. I think that is going to get overlooked, but it shouldn't, because as we've got Jim McElwain stepping down at Central Michigan, and as we've seen every now and again, Miami of Ohio will jump up and do something with Chuck Martin. Ball State can't seem to get out of its own way. We continue to look around and try to find ways to make MACtion something that we look forward to. Toledo went down to Mississippi State and got a win, Jason Candle, but they weren't able to finish the way that they wanted to finish. Kent State is having a hard time. You would love to see a Bowling Green step up, maybe take control in that conference and give that group of 5 conference some measure of authenticity and realism when it comes to can you compete in the college football playoff. Saw what Boise State was able to do because they found their magic player in Ashton Jeanty, and they had a defense that was ferocious, and they found their quarterback, and they were able to spread the ball around. If Eddie George can hit on one of those guys, it feels like he could do it. Now, the question became for me, why wasn't Harold Fannin that guy for Bowling Green? And there's a lot of different answers for that question. But I think now that you know that he's going to be close to Ohio, he's going to be able to go get those players that might otherwise go to Toledo or Eastern Michigan or what have you, right? Northern Illinois, and perhaps turn in a winner. Like if Northern Illinois can go and get a win against Notre Dame, I don't see why Eddie George can't do something similar to what Thomas Hammock was able to do with the Huskies here. It's also having a moment for black coaches in college football, right? We've seen Deion Jackson become the head coach of Delaware State and promptly hire Clinton Portis to his staff. We've seen Michael Vick become the head coach at Norfolk State, and we're excited to see what the Spartans are able to do in this year. Deion Jackson and Mike Vick are going to play against each other in November. I wonder if that game is going to be on television somewhere. And then, we all going to be waiting to see what Deion Sanders in Colorado can do in this first year where Sanders is not coaching one of his boys, where they have a transition at quarterback for the first real time since his first year at Jackson State. And they're going to have to find some other playmakers on the outside, and wide receiver in particular, with Travis Hunter, Will Shepard, Jimmy Horn, all going to LaJohntay Wester, all going to the NFL. It's a year of transition for a lot of folks, but I do want to just drive this home. They're getting opportunities, right? Eddie George and Deion Sanders getting opportunities, but there is a chasm between the star power that is Eddie George, 1995 Heisman Trophy winner and one of the great NFL running backs, Deion Sanders, perhaps one of the 5 greatest athletes to ever walk the face of the earth, and Willie Jeffries, right? There is this growing sentiment also among coaches that many of these star power jobs, right? These starred players are getting these jobs precisely because they're stars, to which I'm going, yeah, duh. That's exactly what they're doing. They are trying to capitalize on the name recognition and brand recognition and reach of Michael Vick, of Deion Jackson, of Deion Sanders, of Eddie George, so that they can get more donations coming their way and they can continue to try to compete in this growing arms race that is college football. I mean, we have state representatives that are introducing bills that are going to make NIL dollars tax exempt so that they might keep some of that money inside the state and keep great players inside the state. This is interesting. And I think Ohio is going to be way ahead on a lot of this because nothing is bigger than Ohio State football and over there. And frankly, I would say Ohio State football is more important than Cleveland Browns football and maybe Cincinnati Bengals football, depending on whether or not Joe Burrow and the Bengals are winning or not. And then you take into account what it means for the future of your university and football program. We're talking about your NCAA tournament team, right? You make the team or make the tournament as an NCAA tournament team. You're probably going to see 10% rise in applications the next year, just period, right? For football, if you make a bowl game, you're going to see 15% rise in applications. You're going to get people coming to your school that otherwise would not because they want to be a part of a winning tradition. And it's one of the only things in sports that you can bank on. That and live sports, right? College football is in that spot. When we're winning, there is nobody that can get in our way and stop us. And it's a rising tide that really does lift all boats. It's one of the reasons why state representatives are saying, hey, look, I understand that if you make $60,000 at the factory and you feel some kind of way about a player not having to pay taxes, you got to pay your damn taxes. How is that fair? To which they're saying, okay, underneath all of this, I am saying we're taxing the first $100,000 that they make in earnings. But even a little bit of that money coming back to the university is going to be huge. And you're right to feel the way that you feel. But if you want to see the greater economy in your state grow, you're going to have to invest in your football and men's basketball programs. And to invest in those, you got to make those universities more enticing to your star players. I thought one statistic was really interesting on that front. Carson Beck probably would have saved $200,000 if he'd stayed, if he didn't go to Miami. So he would have made an extra $200,000 because Florida is a tax-exempt state. In Georgia, that's not so much. They've introduced what they're calling the Kirby Smart Bill that is going to make those dollars tax-exempt for most players to try to get them to go to Georgia universities because everybody else there got to pay taxes. I wonder how much that one's going to get pushed through, but in the South, we love playing football and we want to win more than we want to do anything else. So if you have to carve out tax exemptions for some players that make 7 figures, you're probably going to do that. How does that really dovetail in what Eddie George is doing? Well, he's growing up in the name, image, and likeness era, guys. That means that he's recruiting, knowing that he has to spend money on a certain number of players, and the most important players, quarterback, is probably going to make the most, and he's going to have to really be good at identifying product that he can polish and elevate and then get used to it leaving. That's the one thing I think is going to get on everybody's nerves at Bowling Green and places like it. If you are not good at keeping your talent. You have to be good at finding talent, and you got to do that every single year. It feels like he is learning enough about what that takes at Tennessee State to be able to transfer some of that over to Bowling Green and really put that university on the good foot. I'm very excited about this. I think you should be too.